On a sunny afternoon in a small neighborhood in Ohio, the grocery store buzzed with the familiar hum of daily errands. Shoppers moved briskly through the aisles, pushing carts and engaging in quiet conversations, their routine providing a comforting backdrop to an otherwise ordinary day. The store, with its bright fluorescent lights and neatly arranged shelves, exuded a sense of community where everyone seemed to know one another. Amid this everyday scene, the produce section stood out as a place of vibrant colors and fresh offerings, drawing customers to select the best apples, oranges, and vegetables. It was in this seemingly tranquil setting that an incident would soon shatter the calm and reveal the deep-seated prejudices lurking beneath the surface. An elderly woman, appearing unassuming in her faded cardigan and carefully pinned silver hair, was quietly adjusting her glasses while reaching for a bag of apples. Her demeanor, marked by impatience and a touch of entitlement, contrasted sharply with the routine harmony of the store. Just a few feet away, a young black man named Daryl, dressed casually in a blue hoodie and jeans, was going about his shopping, balancing a basket of groceries and occasionally texting on his phone. The ordinary, sunlit environment of the grocery store was suddenly transformed when the elderly woman's eyes narrowed and a venomous comment was about to be unleashed. In that moment, the everyday setting became the stage for a powerful confrontation that would leave the entire crowd in stunned silence. In a small Ohio grocery store on a bright, sunny afternoon, everyday life flowed as usual. Shoppers pushed their carts down familiar aisles, exchanging friendly nods and quiet conversations. The air was filled with the hum of daily errands, and routine had a comforting, predictable rhythm. However, all that changed in an instant near the produce section, where the colors of fresh apples and oranges brought a spark of vibrancy to the ordinary scene. An elderly woman, appearing unassuming in her faded cardigan and with silver hair carefully pinned, adjusted her glasses as she reached for a bag of apples. At first glance, she looked like any other customer, but her expression soon turned icy. Her eyes narrowed sharply as she noticed a young black man named Daryl. Dressed casually in a blue hoodie and jeans, Daryl was calmly balancing a basket of groceries while texting on his phone, completely absorbed in his own world. Yet, the moment the woman's gaze fell upon him, her demeanor shifted dramatically. Without any provocation beyond his presence, she launched into a hateful tirade. In a voice that echoed through the store and cut through the everyday hum, she spat, "Go back to Africa, where you came from." Her words were like a cold slap, ricocheting off the walls and freezing the movement of every shopper in the aisle. The entire store fell silent, as if the very air had thickened with the weight of her prejudice. People stopped in their tracks, some exchanged uneasy glances while others pretended not to hear, their hearts sinking in collective disbelief. For a long, tense moment, Daryl's fingers hovered over his phone as he absorbed the shock. His face, a mix of surprise and measured composure, betrayed nothing of the turmoil raging within. The elderly woman, clutching her bag of apples with a smug defiance, expected no resistance. In her eyes, her advanced age and presumed authority granted her the right to judge and command without consequence. Then, with a quiet dignity that resonated in the heavy silence, Daryl broke through the tension. His voice, calm and deliberate, rang out, "Do you even realize what you just said?" His words, spoken not with anger but with reflective resolve, forced the hateful woman, and everyone listening, to confront the reality of her own bias. As his question hung in the air, a ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some shoppers looked on in disapproval, while others seemed to be grappling with the raw truth of his challenge. The woman's face faltered, the confident sneer gave way to a flash of uncertainty, as if for the first time, the consequences of her words were beginning to dawn on her. In that charged moment, Daryl's calm courage transformed the confrontation into something much greater than a personal retort. It became a powerful reminder that hate, when met with dignity, loses its strength. His measured response underscored the idea that every word matters, and that silence in the face of racism only allows injustice to persist. This unforgettable showdown in the grocery store became more than a moment of personal defiance. It sparked a wave of reflection among the onlookers. It urged everyone to question their own assumptions and to stand up for what is right, even in the midst of daily routine. Daryl's steady, respectful challenge left an indelible mark on the community, proving that true strength lies in confronting prejudice with unwavering integrity and compassion. The moment the elderly woman shouted, "Go back to Africa, where you came from," the atmosphere in the grocery store transformed instantly. In an instant, the usual hum of daily errands faded into a heavy silence that blanketed the entire aisle. Shoppers, who had been casually pushing their carts and chatting quietly, froze in place as if time itself had stalled. A few people exchanged uneasy glances, while others pretended not to hear, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. Daryl, the young black man in the blue hoodie and jeans, stood near the produce section, his fingers pausing mid-text on his phone. His expression shifted rapidly from initial shock to a controlled, reflective calm. In that charged moment, every sound seemed to diminish: the chatter of customers, the hum of refrigerators, even the rustle of plastic bags appeared to be muted by the weight of the hateful words. The elderly woman, clutching her bag of apples with defiant certainty, expected no resistance. Her tone was dismissive and arrogant, leaving no room for a challenge. Nearby, a young mother quickly steered her child away from the confrontation, instinctively protecting her little one from the raw display of racism. An older man by the potatoes glanced nervously at Daryl, silently urging him to respond, while a cashier craned her neck to get a better view, curiosity mingled with discomfort. The air was thick with tension as every face turned toward Daryl, waiting to see what he would do next. For a long, heart-stopping moment, Daryl's mind raced with 1,000 potential reactions. He could have lashed out or stormed off, but none of those choices felt right. Instead, he took a slow, deliberate breath, shifted his grocery basket to his other hand, and straightened his posture. In the silence that followed, his presence grew, and his calm, measured voice finally cut through the heavy stillness. "Ma'am," he began, his tone neither accusatory nor aggressive, but reflective and steady, "do you even realize what you just said?" His question was delivered with such quiet conviction that it forced every person in the store to confront the full weight of the hateful remark. The elderly woman's confident sneer wavered as her words hung in the air like a bad smell, inescapable and condemning. In that instant, the murmurs from the crowd deepened into a collective silence, charged with emotion. Some shoppers seemed visibly moved, while others appeared conflicted, their faces revealing a mix of indignation and sorrow over the blatant injustice unfolding before them. Daryl's measured response did not come with raised voices or harsh rebukes. It was a calm yet powerful demand for accountability that resonated with everyone present. His steady gaze, filled with quiet determination, seemed to draw out the truth from the hateful comment, challenging the woman to reflect on her words. In that moment, the store became a stage where courage met prejudice, and the true impact of racism was laid bare for all to see. The immediate reaction in the grocery store was one of collective shock and reflection. Daryl's composed yet resolute challenge forced the bystanders to reckon with the reality of racial bias in their everyday lives. His simple question, delivered with dignity, became a powerful reminder that hate thrives in silence, and that speaking up, even quietly, can disrupt and transform the status quo. Daryl's response to the hateful remark was a masterclass in dignified defiance and transformative courage, a moment that reshaped the atmosphere of an ordinary grocery store into a stage for confronting deep-seated prejudice. It all began when, amidst the everyday hum of shoppers pushing carts and quietly conversing, an elderly woman, clad in a faded cardigan with carefully pinned silver hair, abruptly launched a venomous tirade. As she reached for a bag of apples near the produce section, her eyes fixed on a young black man named Daryl, and without any provocation beyond his very presence, she spat, "Go back to Africa, where you came from." The words exploded into the normally benign space, and for a moment, the entire store fell silent as if the very air had thickened with the weight of her hatred. Daryl, dressed casually in a blue hoodie and jeans, was in the midst of balancing his basket of groceries and texting on his phone when he heard the outburst. His fingers froze over the screen as the hateful words reverberated around him. In that charged moment, every sound, the hum of refrigerators, the murmur of conversations, seemed to recede into a heavy silence. Instead of reacting impulsively with anger or retreating in humiliation, Daryl took a deliberate, measured breath. He shifted his grip on his basket and, with a calmness that belied the storm within, fixed his gaze on the woman. His voice, when it came, was steady and reflective, cutting through the tension. "Ma'am, do you even realize what you just said?" His question was not an accusation, but rather an invitation for introspection, a quiet challenge to the woman's deep-seated prejudice. In that moment, Daryl's calm, measured tone forced everyone in the store to confront the raw reality of racism. The hateful remark, once hurled with casual cruelty, now hung in the air like an indictment of ignorance. Shoppers, previously engaged in the simplicity of daily errands, were compelled to stop and listen. Even those who had tried to pretend nothing was amiss found themselves drawn into the intensity of his presence. Daryl continued, his voice growing stronger as he spoke of his heritage. "My great-great-grandfather was born in Mississippi," he said softly, pausing deliberately to let the gravity of his words settle over the room. "He was a sharecropper, working long, grueling days on land he didn't own, breaking his back so that his children could have a chance at a better life." He spoke with measured passion, recounting the painful history of his family, a father who had once been a slave, kidnapped, beaten, and sold like property, and a grandfather who fought in World War II, risking his life for a country that, upon his return, often treated him as less than human. Each word was infused with the pride and sorrow of generations that had endured hardship and fought for dignity. As Daryl's narrative unfolded, the atmosphere in the store shifted further. The hateful tension began to dissolve, replaced by a reflective silence that drew the attention of every onlooker. "You say I don't belong here," Daryl continued, his eyes locking onto the elderly woman's with an unwavering determination, "but I am as much a part of this country as you are, perhaps even more, because my family built this nation with blood, sweat, and tears." His voice, calm yet forceful, resonated through the store, challenging the woman's baseless assumptions and piercing the veil of ignorance that had shrouded the moment. The crowd's reaction was immediate and profound. A young mother pulled her child closer, and even an older man by the dairy section set his phone down, his attention completely captured by Daryl's dignified retort. In that pivotal instant, the store was transformed from a scene of everyday commerce into a collective forum where the destructive power of hate was laid bare. Daryl's measured, reflective response not only silenced the hateful outburst, but also sparked a wave of murmurs and whispered agreements among the shoppers. His calm defiance demonstrated that strength is not found in yelling or physical confrontation, but in the quiet courage to speak truth to power with unwavering integrity. The impact of Daryl's words was far-reaching. His response became a catalyst for reflection, urging everyone present to question their own prejudices and the societal norms that allow such hurtful language to exist unchecked. His steady composure served as a powerful reminder that standing up against racism requires not only bravery but also a commitment to dignity and self-respect. In that ordinary grocery store, Daryl transformed a moment of raw, hateful prejudice into an unforgettable lesson on the power of words, the importance of confronting bias, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. His actions left an indelible mark on the community, a call to rise above ignorance, to challenge injustice, and to create a world where every person is valued for who they truly are, not just how they appear. Daryl's calm voice broke through the heavy silence as he began to recount the legacy that had defined his very existence. "My great-great-grandfather was born in Mississippi," he said, his tone steady and full of quiet pride. "He was a sharecropper, forced to work long, grueling days on land he didn't own, breaking his back so that his children might have a better life." His words carried the weight of generations that had struggled under the oppressive yoke of systemic injustice. He continued, "My father, he was born a slave, kidnapped from his home, beaten, and sold like property, his life controlled by those who saw him as nothing more than a tool. He endured suffering that no one should ever have to face, all to build the foundation of a country that promised freedom, yet often delivered cruelty." As Daryl spoke, the faces of those gathered in the store turned thoughtful, their expressions softening as they absorbed the painful history embedded in his heritage. "And my grandfather," he went on, "fought in World War II. He risked everything overseas, standing up for a nation that, upon his return, still treated him like a second-class citizen. Despite all the hardships, he never lost faith in the promise of this country. He believed in the idea that one day, equality would prevail, and he worked tirelessly so that his descendants could live with dignity." His narrative was more than a personal history, it was a legacy of resilience and sacrifice, a living testament to the enduring spirit of those who fought not only for survival but for a better future. Daryl's measured recounting of his family's past was a direct challenge to the hateful words that had been hurled at him moments before. With every carefully chosen word, he dismantled the baseless stereotype that had been used to belittle him. "You see," he continued, his eyes locking with those of the elderly woman who had shouted her racist tirade, "my family has paid for the very privileges you take for granted. We built this nation with blood, sweat, and tears. Every hardship we endured, every injustice we faced, was a step toward creating a country where every person is meant to have a chance, regardless of the color of their skin." In that charged moment, Daryl's voice became a bridge between the past and the present, a call to acknowledge that the struggles of his ancestors were not isolated incidents, but part of a continuum that demanded recognition and respect. His words evoked images of sun-baked fields in Mississippi, of weary laborers whose hopes were pinned on the promise of a better tomorrow, and of battle-worn veterans returning home only to be met with discrimination. It was a stirring reminder that his heritage was not a burden, but a badge of honor, proof that the very hardships inflicted by prejudice had forged in him a strength and determination that no hateful remark could ever diminish. As Daryl concluded his narrative, the silence in the store deepened into one of introspection and quiet awe. His words had transformed the confrontation from a moment of personal attack into a powerful lesson in resilience and dignity. He had shown that the true measure of a person lies not in superficial judgments, but in the enduring legacy of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering hope. In that ordinary grocery store, Daryl's personal history and heritage became a rallying cry for justice, a reminder that every individual deserves to be seen for their true worth, a legacy built on struggle and triumph that can inspire change in even the most ordinary settings. The impact of Daryl's measured response rippled through the entire grocery store, leaving an indelible mark on every person present. In that charged moment, the usual hum of daily activity was replaced by a profound, reflective silence that spoke louder than any confrontation could have. Shoppers who had once been absorbed in their own routines, pushing carts, chatting quietly, or simply browsing the aisles, suddenly found themselves forced to pause and confront a truth they had long ignored. The hateful words, thrown carelessly by the elderly woman, reverberated through the space, but it was Daryl's calm and dignified reply that captured everyone's attention and reshaped the atmosphere. As Daryl's voice rang out, asking, "Do you even realize what you just said?" the crowd's initial shock transformed into a collective moment of introspection. Some shoppers exchanged looks of disbelief and disapproval, their eyes reflecting a mix of indignation and sorrow. In that silence, it became clear that the incident was not just about a single racist remark, it was a mirror held up to the community, reflecting deep-seated biases that had been silently tolerated for far too long. A young mother, who had hurried her child away from the scene, now looked back with a questioning gaze, as if reconsidering what she had once taken for granted about the world around her. An older gentleman near the produce section set his phone aside, his eyes fixed on Daryl as if he were witnessing a turning point in his own understanding of respect and dignity. Even the store employees, who had initially watched the confrontation with detached curiosity, began to display subtle shifts in their expressions, furtive glances, lowered heads, and a collective sense of discomfort that signaled their unspoken regret over having silently allowed such prejudice to unfold. The palpable silence that followed Daryl's words was soon punctuated by murmurs of support. A young cashier, previously hesitant, whispered to a colleague that she had never seen anyone handle such a hateful moment with so much grace. Others, emboldened by the courage of his measured retort, began to murmur words of approval. In that instant, the ordinary grocery store transformed into an impromptu forum for reflection, a space where every individual was forced to reconsider their own views and the societal norms that had, until that moment, been unchallenged. Daryl's ability to remain composed and articulate a powerful rebuttal against racism resonated deeply with many present. His quiet strength reminded everyone that confronting hate does not always require anger or loud denunciation. Sometimes, the most impactful response is one delivered with calm conviction and thoughtful reflection. His words served as a catalyst for change, inspiring onlookers to question not only the remark that had just been made but also the broader context of bias and intolerance that continues to pervade everyday interactions. The crowd's reaction was a testament to the transformative power of dignity in the face of injustice. While the elderly woman's hateful comment had momentarily disrupted the peace, it was ultimately Daryl's unwavering integrity that united the witnesses in a shared sense of purpose. His response ignited a collective awareness, an unspoken agreement that such prejudice could no longer be ignored or accepted. In that moment, each individual present became a participant in a larger movement for respect and equality. As shoppers resumed their activities, the tension slowly dissipated, replaced by a reflective quiet. Conversations that followed were tinged with a newfound awareness as people began discussing the importance of standing up against bias. The incident left everyone with a lasting impression that even in the most mundane settings, the courage to speak truth to hate can spark meaningful change. Daryl's response had not only silenced a racist remark, but had also sown the seeds of transformation, urging everyone to be better, to do better, and to ensure that respect and dignity become the norm in every interaction. The broader message of this incident is that confronting prejudice with dignity can transform hearts and spark lasting change. In an ordinary grocery store, a hateful remark shattered the routine, forcing everyone present to confront the ugly reality of discrimination. Instead of responding with anger or retaliation, Daryl chose a calm, measured approach that silenced the room and invited reflection. By calmly questioning the racist remark and sharing his own personal heritage, Daryl exposed not only the baseless nature of the insult but also the deep historical injustices that continue to fuel bias. His words resonated with the onlookers, urging them to re-examine their own assumptions and to recognize that every individual deserves respect, regardless of superficial differences. This encounter reminds us that true strength lies in responding to hate with empathy and integrity. When we challenge prejudice, whether in our communities, workplaces, or daily interactions, we not only affirm our own dignity but also set a standard that can inspire others to stand up for justice. It teaches us that silence in the face of hate allows injustice to persist, while a thoughtful, measured response can open the door to deeper understanding and change. Ultimately, this incident is a call to action. It challenges each of us to replace snap judgments with compassion, to speak up against injustice, and to foster environments where fairness and respect are the norm. In doing so, we contribute to building a more inclusive society, where every voice is valued and every person is seen for who they truly are. The broader message of this incident is that confronting prejudice with dignity can transform hearts and spark lasting change. In an ordinary grocery store, a hateful remark shattered the routine, forcing everyone present to confront the ugly reality of discrimination. Instead of responding with anger or retaliation, Daryl chose a calm, measured approach that silenced the room and invited reflection. By calmly questioning the racist remark and sharing his own personal heritage, Daryl exposed not only the baseless nature of the insult but also the deep historical injustices that continue to fuel bias. His words resonated with the onlookers, urging them to re-examine their own assumptions and to recognize that every individual deserves respect, regardless of superficial differences. This encounter reminds us that true strength lies in responding to hate with empathy and integrity. When we challenge prejudice, whether in our communities, workplaces, or daily interactions, we not only affirm our own dignity but also set a standard that can inspire others to stand up for justice. It teaches us that silence in the face of hate allows injustice to persist, while a thoughtful, measured response can open the door to deeper understanding and change. Ultimately, this incident is a call to action. It challenges each of us to replace snap judgments with compassion, to speak up against injustice, and to foster environments where fairness and respect are the norm. In doing so, we contribute to building a more inclusive society, where every voice is valued and every person is seen for who they truly are. The key lesson from this encounter is that responding to hate with dignity can spark transformative change in our communities. In our everyday lives, we may encounter hurtful words or actions driven by prejudice, but what truly matters is how we choose to react. Daryl's calm, measured response to a racist remark in a grocery store serves as a powerful reminder that true strength lies in self-respect and empathy, not in reacting with anger. His quiet challenge forced everyone present to confront their own biases and to reflect on the deep-seated issues that fuel discrimination. His example shows that even a simple, thoughtful response can break the cycle of hatred and inspire others to stand up for what is right. For those who have seen decades of change, this story resonates deeply. It reminds us that every person deserves respect, regardless of their appearance or background. By choosing compassion over hostility, we not only protect our own dignity but also create a ripple effect that can transform our communities. Standing up against injustice, no matter how small the setting, sets a powerful example for future generations. Ultimately, embracing empathy and fairness is essential for building a more inclusive society. When we speak out against prejudice and treat others with kindness, we contribute to a legacy of tolerance and unity. This commitment to respect and understanding ensures that, even in the face of adversity, positive change is always possible, creating a better world for everyone.